and a safe country. As usual, the opportunist wasted not 1 second to exploit tragedy for political gain. Saul Alinsky would have been proud. The breakback speed of calls for more gun control laws, and the breathless national media eager to smear the NRA. Think about that. In the midst of genuine grief and a very understandable passion, as millions of Americans search for meaningful solutions, what do we find? Chris Murphy, Nancy Pelosi, and more, cheered on by the national media, eager to blame the NRA and call for even more government control. They hate the NRA. They hate the Second Amendment. They hate individual freedom. In the rush of calls for more government, they've also revealed their true selves. The elites don't care not one whit about America's school system and school children. If they truly cared, what they would do is they would protect them. For them, it's not a safety issue, it's a political issue. They care more about control and more of it. Their goal is to eliminate the Second Amendment and our firearms freedoms so they can eradicate all individual freedoms. What they want are more restrictions on the law-abiding. Think about that. Their solution is to make you, all of you, less free. They want to sweep right under the carpet the failure of school security, the failure of family, the failure of America's mental health system, and even the unbelievable failure of the FBI. They fantasize about more laws stopping what other laws fail to stop. The truth is, laws succeed only when people obey them. That's what the law-abiding majority in this country practices. But once again, so many existing laws were ignored. Their laws don't stop illegal criminals from crossing our borders every single day. Their laws don't stop the scourge of gang violence and drug crime that savages Baltimore, Chicago, and every major American community. Their laws haven't stopped the plague of opioids and Chinese fentanyl from Mexico that floods American streets and kills victims every single day in this country. No wonder law-abiding Americans all over this country revere their Second Amendment freedom to protect themselves more than ever. They don't care if their laws work or not. They just want to get more laws, to get more control over people. But the NRA does care. We at the NRA are Americans who continue to mourn and care and work every day at contributing real solutions to this very real problem. Real practical action to truly protect our children. Think about it. It's a bizarre fact that in this country, our jewelry stores all over this country are more important than our children. Our banks, our airports, our NBA games, our NFL games, our office buildings, our movie stars, our politicians, they're all more protected than our children at school. Does that make any sense to anybody? Do we really love our money and our celebrities more than we love our children? Can we answer that question honestly any of us, can we answer that question honestly, knowing that we surround and protect so much with armed security while we drop our kids off at school that are so-called gun-free zones that are wide-open targets for any crazy madman bent on evil to come there first? In every community in America, school districts, PTAs, teachers' unions, local law enforcement, moms and dads, they all must come together to implement the very best strategy to harden their schools, including effective, trained armed security that will absolutely protect every innocent child in this country. And that has to happen now. Evil walks among us, and God help us if we don't harden our schools and protect our kids. The whole idea from some of our opponents that armed security makes us less safe is completely ridiculous. If that's true, and just think about this, if that's true, armed security makes us less safe, let's just go ahead and remove it from everywhere. Let's remove it from the White House, from Capitol Hill, and remove it from all of Hollywood. Any American school that needs immediate professional consultation and help with organizing and defining these solutions should call the National Rifle Association School Shield Program. And we will provide immediate assistance, and we will also provide it absolutely free to any school in America. I'll tell you this, that's more than anybody at the Democratic National Committee or NBC News or the Washington Post is offering. But you know what? The shameful politicization of tragedy, it's a classic tragedy right out of the playbook of a poisonous movement. In my 3 decades of leading the NRA, I've had the pleasure of working with a number of Democrats who believed America to be the greatest country in the world because of our free market capitalism and because of our individual liberties. But during the last decade, the Obama decade, many of those leaders have been forced out as a tidal wave of new European-style socialists seize control of the Democratic Party. Obama promised a fundamental transformation of our country. And you know what? It began with his own national party, a party that is now infested with saboteurs who don't believe in capitalism, don't believe in the Constitution, don't believe in our freedom, and don't believe in America as we know it. Obama may be gone, but their utopian dream, it marches on. And President Trump's election, while crucial, can't turn away the wave of these new European-style socialists bearing down upon us. I'm not just talking about Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's near the end of his career. But how about Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Bill de Blasio, Andrew Cuomo, Cory Booker, Christopher Murphy, and Keith Ellison? They are not Democrats in the mold of John F. Kennedy or Tip O'Neill. They hide behind labels like Democrat, left-wing, and progressive to make their socialist agenda more palatable. And that is terrifying. And that should terrify every citizen who values the American ideal in this country of individual liberty. They politicized the Department of Justice. They weaponized the Internal Revenue Service, the EPA, perhaps crippled the FBI and the intelligence community, and seized and embedded leadership in all of them to advance their agenda. Absolute control in every corner of our government is their ultimate dream. These intellectual elites, they think they're smarter than we are. They think they're smarter than the rest of us. And they think they're better than we are. They truly believe it, and you know it. The privileged and the powerful, they think they deserve to be in charge of every lever of power. But you know what? The United States Constitution makes it absolutely clear that they are not in charge. We, the people, are in charge of this country. But Washington, oh my gosh, this city, it likes to ignore that. Our intelligence community shrouds everything in secrecy, driving into darkness every dirty memo and every dirty institutional secret and memory in the name of national security. But when the leaks come, as so often occurs in the light of day, it reveals nothing about the security of our country, and it reveals everything about the corruption of those in power. That's because in a captive society, the loss of transparency results in the loss of truth. They also eliminate internal resistance to wrongdoing in these great institutions. There is no stronger supporter of our law enforcement than the National Rifle Association. My gosh, we're one of the largest law enforcement organizations in the United States if you look at our membership. And we're proud of that. Everywhere I go, I get a police officer coming up to me, thanking me and saying, I'm a member of your organization. Keep up what you're doing. And there are tens of thousands of incredible men and women at the FBI. These are honorable, decent, hard-working people, and they're dedicated to keeping our country safe every single day. And we're proud of them, and we thank them. But as we've learned in recent months, even the FBI is not free of its own corruption and its own unethical agents. Look, and I know you probably all share this sentiment, and I get people telling me from coast to coast, and they kind of shake their heads when they say it to me. I can understand a few bad apples in an organization as large as the FBI, but what's hard to understand is why no one at the FBI stood up and called BS on its rogue leadership. I mean, really, where was the systemic resistance and repulsion that should protect every powerful institution that serves us? The lowest-ranking Marine knows to resist an unlawful order. The rank and file in every powerful institution must police its own leadership. But still, too much of today's Washington, no one speaks out. No one challenges authority. Everyone keeps their mouth closed and their heads down, and that's exactly how socialistic societies function. When leaders do whatever they want, when resistance and repercussion disappears, and when the fundamental concept of moral behavior is expunged, the state rules the day. And anyone who attempts to resist is smeared right into submission. Yep. You know it. Ah, yes, the art of the smear. We do live in the socialistic age of the art of the smear. Doesn't have to be true. It just has to stick somewhere, anywhere. It's designed to degrade, destroy, and it's all over the national media to serve their agenda. And socialism is a movement that loves a smear. Racist, misogynist, sexist, xenophobe, and more. These are the weapons and vitriol these character assassinations scream to permanently hang on their targets and create a growing segment of victims. Because socialism feeds off manipulated victims. You name the group, and they will find a way to turn them into victims. They keep their movement growing by finding someone to be offended by something every minute of every day. From the Occupy movement, to Black Lives Matter, to Antifa, they agitate the offended, promote uncivil discourse, and ignore any sense of due process and fairness to destroy their enemies. The elimination of due process is the very gold standard of the socialist state. Imagine this, and this happened and it's true. Imagine telling an elderly couple that because they sought help to do their taxes, that they could no longer exercise their fundamental Second Amendment right. That's exactly what Obama did. His administration proposed that some Social Security recipient who granted financial authority to a family member, friend, or financial professional was banned from purchasing a firearm. No questions asked, just like that. Good, law-abiding people were automatically and unjustly declared mentally incompetent and put on a new government list. And oh, how socialists love to make lists, especially lists that can be used to deny citizens their basic freedoms. And now some people are calling for a new list of anyone who has sought mental health care to deny them their Second Amendment rights. Look, and this is really important, and you never hear this on the national media. So I want to say it to all of you now, and I need your help in telling all of America this because it's the truth. The National Rifle Association originated the National Instant Check System. It was our bill. No one on the prohibited persons list should ever have access to a firearm. No killer, no felon, no drug dealer. And anyone adjudicated as mentally incompetent or dangerous to society should be added to the check system and prevented from getting their hands on a gun. But watch what I released 3 years ago, and the media machine all over the country, they so callously and completely ignored it. Watch this.
Here's what the media won't tell you. The NRA has fought for 20 years to put the records of those adjudicated mentally incompetent into the National Instant Check System. And until the politicians demand that they are submitted, killers who are legally prohibited from owning firearms will walk into gun stores and pass every background check they take. So if they really wanted to make a difference, the media would lead every newscast with a reminder that the names of millions of violent felons, criminal gangbangers, and adjudicated mentally incompetent and dangerous people are missing from the background check system. But no one gets ratings by telling the truth about how to stop mass killers. So they don't report that 38 states submit less than 80% of their felony convictions to the system, leaving more than 7 million felony convictions in the dark. They don't tell you the truth. Instead, the only thing the average American has heard about background checks is the absolute fallacy that what we need is more. The system is only as good as the records within it. And the records only get submitted if the politicians demand it. What are the Oregon killer, the WDBJ killer, the Charleston church killer, the Santa Barbara killer, the Maryland Mall killer, the LA Airport killer, the DC Navy Yard killer, the Aurora Movie Theater killer, the Tucson killer, the Virginia Tech killer, and both Fort Hood killers have in common? Every single one of them passed a background check. If you cast a net and the fish swim through the holes, you don't need a bigger net, you need tighter holes. But when it comes to a background check system that's missing the names of millions of prohibited people, the politicians don't want to fix it. The best kept secret is that the National Instant Check System wouldn't exist at all if it weren't for the NRA. It's true. Back in the 90s, President Clinton forced passage of a mandatory waiting period on every handgun purchased in America. Not a background check, a wait. But NRA said as soon as the technology was available, their wait had to be replaced by an instant background check done by the dealer at the point of sale. NRA supported it, NRA got the votes, and NRA got it passed. We demanded an honest system that was supposed to make sure good people can purchase firearms as quickly as possible, a system that catches violent felons, the adjudicated mentally incompetent and dangerous, and every other prohibited person right at the point of sale, where they would be prosecuted for a federal felony. But they aren't. What has happened instead is one of the greatest failures in the history of American leadership. In 2010, roughly 80,000 prohibited people committed a felony by trying to buy a gun. Just 44 were prosecuted for it. Does that sound like a good number to anybody? So when you hear politicians who won't fix the broken system talk about expanding it, don't buy it. Demand what works. Put armed security in every school. Fix the broken mental health system. Enforce the federal gun laws against every criminal thug on the street. Prosecute dangerous people when they show up to buy a gun. And for God's sake, put every prohibited person into the system. That's what common sense gun laws look like.
Look, you know, the whole discussion of the Second Amendment and the gun issue in this country has become so dishonest in the national media and so dishonest among the politicians that you can barely stand it. That's not a new video, as I said. I've said for years, and I've been ignored by the same opportunists who don't give a damn. Yet you see them on TV every day whining away. Here's what I said on CBS way back in 1993. That was 25 years ago.
Let me ask you this. Are you in favor of computerizing the mental health records of people into a national computer bank?
You bet I am.
Well, can we join hands on that and go to Capitol Hill right now? Will you shake on it with me?
Now, here's the real tragedy. Charles Schumer shook my hand to get all the mental health records into the system, and then he went back to Capitol Hill, and you know what he did? Absolutely nothing. How many lives might have been saved if he had just kept his promise? They are liars to the core, and I'll make this prediction right now. A year from today, many of those records may still not be in the system, not if some of these whining for television politicians and their media enablers have their way. Instead, what they'll do is they'll keep coming after the NRA. And when another monster slips through the cracks, the very cracks that they've enabled in the system, as the records of prohibited persons remain out of the database, it'll happen again. But here's something we must be careful of as we go forward. We all have to be careful that this doesn't become a runaway train. What if all of your medical records, perhaps your conversations with your doctor, your prescription information, do we really want all that on a government list and in a government database? Here's another one. A military vet goes to his or her local VA, comes home, goes to his or her local VA, and tells the doctor they're having trouble sleeping at night. Or anyone who shares their nightmares with a medical professional. They all become potential triggers that somebody somewhere could define as a mental health barrier to owning a firearm. I even heard a television pundit recently suggesting that people seeking to buy a firearm should be interviewed first. I mean, interviewed first? Who's going to conduct that interview? And what will they ask? That's the challenge we as a free society face. How do we create a step along the way called due process that protects the innocent, law-abiding people of this country from being falsely accused, politically abused, and permanently stigmatized unjustly? Come on. Socialists oppose all of our most fundamental freedoms enshrined in the Bill of Rights. They don't like free speech any more than they like the Second Amendment. They like only limited speech, controlled by them through safe speech zones where they can shame the outspoken or riot to shut them up. If you still think we have full First Amendment freedom in this country, try going right now out to Berkeley and speaking out in favor of conservative causes or even the Second Amendment. This growing socialist state dreams of manipulating school children to squeeze information about their parents. They'll be asking your kids if mommy and daddy spank them or what mommy and daddy feeds them for dinner. They'll want to know what TV shows you watch, what magazines, newspapers you read. And oh yes, do mommy and daddy own a gun? And all that private information will be entered into that ultimate list, that cloud of data storage that couldn't care less about due process and constitutional freedom and your privacy as an American citizen. And then it's just a short hop to the systematic destruction of our most basic freedoms in this country. And you all know what they are, but let me say them. Family, faith, individual responsibility, and self-destiny, a free market economy, patriotism, respect for our national flag and national anthem, personal liberty, and justice for all. Going back a decade or more, these essential freedoms and these essential values have been increasingly and sadly ridiculed and disrespected and diminished in this country. And it won't take long, if we stay on the path we're on, to erase them completely. That's the real consequence of this new socialist wave in America. You know, I hear a lot of quiet in this room, and I sense your anxiety. And you should be anxious, and you should be frightened. If they seize power, if these so-called European socialists take over the House and the Senate, and God forbid they get the White House again, our American freedoms could be lost and our country will be changed forever. And the first to go will be the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. History proves it. Every time, in every nation in which this political disease rises to power, its citizens are repressed, their freedoms are destroyed, and their firearms are banned and confiscated. And it's all backed in this country by the social engineering and the billions of people like George Soros, Michael Bloomberg, Tom Steyer, and more, and gleefully promoted by those who have risen to power in the so-called national news media and seized control of social media to spread their propaganda. They don't tell us news, and you all know it, and people know it all over the United States. They say it to me every day. They don't tell us news. They tell us what we need to think. That's the way it is these days. On college campuses, a Communist Manifesto is one of the most frequently assigned texts. Karl Marx is the most assigned economist. And there are now over 100 chapters of Young Democratic Socialists of America at many universities, and students are even earning academic credit for promoting socialist causes. In too many classrooms all over the United States, and I know you think about this when you decide where you're going to send your kids to school, and your kids think about it too. The United States Constitution is ignored, United States history is perverted, and the Second Amendment, freedom in this country, is despised. You know, some people out there think the NRA should just stick to its Second Amendment agenda and not talk about all of our freedoms. But real freedom requires protection of all of our rights. And a Second Amendment isn't worth its own words in a country where all of our other individual freedoms are destroyed. So I promise you this: the NRA will not only speak out, we will speak out louder, and we will speak out stronger than ever before. We will do it through NRA TV and our media operations, which will expand to reach a growing audience of Americans that are looking all over this country for the truth. They're going to do it with strong voices like Dana Lass that you've just seen, Dan Bongino, and others who are engaging in new programming to make our message just as accessible as NBC, the New York Times, and the rest of the so-called national news media. Let's be clear. We are never talking about an armed resistance against the socialist corruption of our government. We are always talking about a resistance armed with the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights in our country. The genius of those documents, the brilliance of America, of our country itself, is that all of our freedoms in this country are for every single citizen. And there is no greater personal individual freedom than the right to keep and bear arms, the right to protect yourself, and the right to survive. It's not bestowed by man, but granted by God to all Americans as our American birthright. So I call right now today on every citizen who loves this country and who treasures this freedom to stand and unflinchingly defend the Second Amendment, the one freedom that protects us all in this country. And I refuse to leave this stage until I say one more time that we must immediately harden our schools. Every day, young children are being dropped off at schools that are virtually wide open, soft targets for anyone bent on mass murder. It should not be easier for a madman to shoot up a school than a bank or a jewelry store or some Hollywood gala. Schools must be the most hardened targets in this country, and evil must be confronted immediately with all necessary force to protect our kids. I said 5 years ago, after that horrible tragedy in Newtown, and I wish, oh God, I wish more had heeded my words. So lean in, listen to me now, and never forget these words. To stop a bad guy with a gun, it takes a good guy with a gun. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We stayed up all night long, made our drinks too strong, feeling 10 feet tall, rope swinging to the water in the middle of the night like whoa, oh, 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 breaking our boots and stomping on the ground we grew up on, yeah, we were raised on it, worked hard and played.
Two, check 1, 2, 3, 4, check, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, check, 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 1, 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome ACU Chairman Matt Schlapp.
Flying like a cannonball, falling to the earth. Heavy as a feather when you hit the dirt. I'm like a lucky one, I did not deserve. Wait around forever when you were there first.
Hello, everyone. Is that not a beautiful stage? You know what those buildings are, right? See the White House, the Capitol, the Supreme Court? We all know what's at stake. And as you think through all the things we're dealing with as a country and in society, we realize how important it is and how lucky those of us are who have a life partner to take the journey with. As a country, we're so fortunate to have a woman of humility and deep faith taking this interesting journey along with our Vice President. We often say about Vice President Pence that he has this stellar conservative record in Congress, as the governor of Pennsylvania, now your Vice President. Do you know what his Come on, we have some Hoosiers out here. All right, that's good. Do you know what his lifetime rating was with the American Conservative Union? It was 98%. 98%. And I've come to realize one of the reasons why his votes in Congress were so solid for our conservative values. I think he didn't want to go home and tell his wife if he cast a bad vote. We're so fortunate to have Karen Pence, along with her husband, over there in the White House, making a difference. She believes in supporting the rights of the unborn. She believes in helping our military families and spouses. She's been a teacher, she's a mom, but more importantly, she respects all of you, and she's our friend. Please give a warm CPAC welcome to the Second Lady of the United States, Karen Pence.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, CPAC, for that warm, warm welcome. What an honor to be able to address you today, and what a treat to introduce my husband. And I do want to introduce him today. I want to introduce you to a different side of Mike Pence that you may not know. For years, people in Indiana heard his conservative commentary on his radio show. We called him Rush Limbaugh on decaf. And then for 12 years, on the floor of the United States Congress, he fought for conservative principles. Yeah. Next, he governed as a conservative governor in our home state of Indiana. And today, he will speak to you as Vice President. But that Mike Pence you already know. I'd like to take this opportunity to pull back the curtain and show you the Mike Pence that I know. I'd like you to see this man that I've been married to for 32 years. A man, thank you. A man who has supported me as a teacher. He actually would come to my back-to-school nights. He also supported me as a stay-at-home mom when I wanted to be home. Yeah. And I used to do these watercolor fairs, and he would come to my booth and help sell the watercolors. And now he firmly supports my initiative of art therapy. But I want you to see a little more about him. So here we go. 5 facts you need to know about Mike Pence. Don't you love those? Number 1, if it's Friday night, we better be having pizza for dinner, supreme thin crust with an O'Doul's. Every Friday night. Number 2, now this is a good one for you to hear about. The feedback that he respects the most comes from his 3 kids, all 3 of them. We raised them to be independent thinkers, to climb their own mountains, to not be afraid to speak up and disagree with us. So he knows their comments are honest and sometimes hard-hitting, and their praise is sincere. He values their opinions above all, even above mine, because my job, as we all know, is to keep him humble. So I don't always give him all this positive feedback. Number 3, you may not know this about him. Mike Pence is a cartoon artist. I know, gotcha, didn't I? In law school, he drew the weekly cartoon for the law school paper. It was called Law School Daze, D-A-Z-E. And Daze was the main character, a law student, fashioned after yours truly, Mike Pence. So for his law school graduation present, I took all of the cartoons and I put them in a book. So we have a book now of all of his cartoons. And when I was teaching 2nd grade, we used to have my students over for dinner in small groups, and he would draw a caricature of each one of them before they left that evening. Number 4, what would Mike Pence buy if he could buy anything? A horse. He has always wanted a horse. And I think riding horses is really the only place he truly relaxes. And number 5, he loves a good book, especially the good book. He is a voracious reader, from historical novels to biographies to mysteries to Christian books to political commentaries. He loves a good book. So thank you for letting me introduce my husband, Vice President Mike Pence.
Well, hello, CPAC. And thank you to my wonderful wife, Karen. Isn't she something? A teacher, an artist, a Marine Corps mom, and the Second Lady of the United States. Would you give Karen one more round of applause for all that she does for the cause and the country? And it is great to be back at CPAC 2018, the largest gathering of conservatives in America every single year. Thank you all for being here. And before I begin and talk about the progress we've made, allow me to take a moment to address what I know is on all of our hearts this morning. The terrible attack that claimed the lives of 17 Americans and injured more last week in Parkland, Florida. In America, we mourn with those who mourn and grieve with those who grieve. And yesterday, President Trump and I met with the family of Meadow Pollack and other students and families reeling from the attack in Parkland. We also met in the White House with families from other communities who've experienced the same violence firsthand. And as the President said, we'll never forget it. We prayed with them. We listened to them as they poured out their hearts. As the President has said, no child, no teacher should ever be in danger in an American school. Earlier this week, President Trump called on Congress to strengthen background checks, and 2 days ago he directed the Department of Justice to expedite the regulation of bump stocks. Later this week, when the President meets with the nation's governors in our nation's capital, we'll make the safety of our nation's schools and our students our top national priority. I can assure you all of this. President Trump and our entire administration will continue to take strong action to make our schools safe and to give law enforcement and our families the tools they need to deal with those struggling with dangerous mental illness. So as we move forward, we'll continue to work, and we'll continue with all of you to pray for God's grace and comfort for all the families impacted by this terrible attack. And we'll pray for God's wisdom, that all of us in positions of authority might find a way to come together with American solutions to confront and end this evil in our time. So thank you. It is great to be back at CPAC. I stand here today with profound gratitude to say that because of all of you, because of the conservative majorities in Congress that you helped elect, and because of the strong leadership of the President you put in the White House, 2017 was the most consequential year in the history of the conservative movement. And tomorrow, you'll hear firsthand from the man who galvanized that movement. You know, I spoke to him on the phone this morning, and I can tell you he can't wait to get here. The man who won a historic election, the man who's been delivering on the promises that he made every day since, the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. You know, I'm here because I stand with President Trump. I'm here because we stand with the conservative movement. And come to think of it, we always stand for our flag and our national anthem as well. But what a year. You know, when President Trump addressed you last February, he declared in his words that our victory was a victory and a win for conservative values. And so it was. And now he and I are both back here at CPAC this week to thank you for everything you've done to advance our cause. Because of your support in this past year, it's been a year of action. It's been a year of remarkable results. In a word, it's been a year of promises made and promises kept. I mean, think about it. President Trump promised to rebuild our military and restore the arsenal of democracy. And in just a few weeks, he'll sign the largest investment in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. He promised to stand without apology for the men and women of law enforcement, and today we're once again giving those peace officers the respect and the resources they deserve all across America. President Trump promised to enforce our laws, secure our borders, and today illegal crossings at our southern border have been cut nearly in half, and make no mistake about it, we're going to build that wall. He promised to appoint strong conservatives to the federal courts at every level, and President Trump came through. He appointed Justice Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court and set a record for the most circuit court judges appointed in the first year of any administration in history. And President Donald Trump promised to stand for the unalienable right to life. And from the first day of this administration, he reinstated the Mexico City policy, and I was honored to cast the tie-breaking vote in the Senate to send a bill to the president's desk to allow states to defund Planned Parenthood. On the economy, we've unleashed American energy, approved the Keystone and Dakota pipelines, and President Trump put America first when he withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Accord. And we've been busy rolling back the heavy hand of government as well. This president has actually repealed 22 regulations for every new federal rule put on the books. And finally, President Trump promised to cut taxes across the board for working families and job creators. And 2 months ago today, President Trump signed the largest tax cuts and tax reform in American history. Promises made, promises kept. And on the world stage, we've also been restoring strong American leadership. And under President Donald Trump, America once again stands without apology as leader of the free world. Our NATO allies are contributing more to our common defense than ever before. And for decades, after one president after another promised to move the U.S. Embassy to the capital of our most cherished ally, President Trump made history on December 6 when the United States of America recognized Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel. So we've stood with our allies, and we've stood up to our enemies. And nowhere is that more true than in the fight against radical Islamic terror. Under this Commander-in-Chief, we've taken the fight to the terrorists on our terms, on their soil. Thanks to the courage of our armed forces and the leadership of this Commander-in-Chief, ISIS is on the run, their caliphate has crumbled, and we will not rest or relent until we destroy ISIS at its source, so it can no longer threaten our nation, our allies, or our way of life. And we put the leading state sponsor of terror on notice as well. The United States will no longer tolerate Iran's destabilizing activities across the region, and this country will no longer certify the disastrous Iran nuclear deal. And in the wake of provocations and threats against the United States and our allies, we've made it clear to North Korea that the era of strategic patience is over. Two weeks ago, I was honored to lead the official delegation to the opening ceremonies of the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, where we cheered on Team USA. But as you all know, many in the mainstream media seem quite taken with another dignitary. You know, for all the media fawning over the sister of the North Korean dictator, I think it's important that every American knows who this person is and what she's done. The sister of Kim Jong-un is a central pillar of the most tyrannical and oppressive regime on the planet. An evil family clique that brutalizes, subjugates, starves, and imprisons its 25 million people. Even the United Nations reported that, in their words, the gravity, scale, and nature of these violations reveal a state that does not have a parallel in the contemporary world. That's why the United States government has sanctioned her for her role in abetting North Korea's horrendous human rights abuses and crimes against humanity. People are routinely jailed and executed for the most minor acts of defiance. And every American remembers the heartbreaking story of Otto Warmbier. So for all those in the media who think I should have stood and cheered with the North Koreans, I say, the United States of America doesn't stand with murderous dictatorships. We stand up to murderous dictatorships. And we will keep standing strong until North Korea stops threatening our country, our allies, or until they abandon their nuclear and ballistic missiles once and for all. So in this White House, it's about strength. It's about growth for our nation. And it's working. America is more secure, and our economy is booming. You know, since Election Day 2016, businesses large and small have created more than 2.5 million new jobs across this country. Unemployment hasn't been this low in 17 years, and more Americans are working today than ever before in American history. After 8 years of a stagnant economy and wages that wouldn't budge, American workers are seeing their paychecks rise faster today than at any point in nearly a decade. And more than 1.5 million Americans have left the rolls of food stamps and now are able to support and sustain themselves with dignity and self-worth. But I know in my heart that the best is yet to come, because as we speak, our economy has already started to feel the effects of that historic tax cut. About 90% of working Americans are going to get a tax cut. Millions are already seeing more money in their paychecks and feeling it in their wallets. And we didn't just cut taxes on your income. The Obamacare individual mandate tax is gone. You know, since the president's tax cuts became the law of the land, businesses large and small have actually announced more than $480 billion in new investments in American jobs, American workers, and in just the past 2 months, more than 4.3 million Americans have already gotten a raise or a bonus, and we're just getting started. Folks, that's great news. That's great news. But not everybody thinks it's that big of a deal. I don't know if you heard, but the woman that wants to be Speaker of the House again, Nancy Pelosi, said, she actually said the tax cuts would be Armageddon before they pass. But just a few days ago, she said it was unpatriotic to let the American people keep more of what they earn. But most amazingly of all, she keeps saying that a $1,000 bonus for working Americans is nothing more than crumbs. Well, let me remind all of you, I come from the Joseph A. Bank wing of the West Wing of the White House. Okay. All right. I mean, seriously, folks, when our kids were little, we had a term for another $1,000 in our paycheck at the end of the year. Christmas. Are you with me? I mean, these bonuses have meant real money. They've helped working families all across this country with pay raises that are generating opportunities even as we speak. And I want to say from my heart, any leader who says that $1,000 in the pockets of working families is crumbs is out of touch with the American people. You know, it would be a disaster for our cause if Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House again. But we're not going to let it happen. But this movement should know it's a very real threat, because the other side knows exactly what's at stake between now and the end of this year. The far left has watched with dismay as we've dismantled the liberal legacy of the last administration and turned this country around. And they're doing everything they can to try and win back the Congress next November. I mean, we don't have to wonder what would happen if the party of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer won the House and the Senate this November, do we? I mean, remember the last time it happened? I do. I was actually there the last time Democrats ran the Congress, and they nearly ran America into the ground. They raised taxes, they cut the military, they tried to pass cap and trade, they gave us Dodd-Frank and the Obamacare nightmare. I mean, they thought they could borrow, spend, and bail their way back to a growing America. In the past few years, Democrats have only fallen further to the left. Their platform, as we all know, can be summed up in one word: resist. Resist our policies, resist our president, and resist the results that you and I and our entire movement have fought so hard to achieve. So it's up to us to stand up to them and stand up for the American people and the progress that we've made. But the other side is motivated. They're mobilized. So today, to the men and women of this conservative movement, I want to admonish you. Let this be the day that we, as a movement, decided to deliver another victory for the American people in 2018. I mean, we threw out the playbook in 2016, and we're going to throw it out in 2018. If all of us do all that we can from this day forward, I know we'll continue to achieve historic victories for our movement and for America. You know, the choices that we make in the days ahead, the promises that we make to one another, and the actions we take will shape our nation for generations to come. So today, on behalf of President Trump and our entire administration, I'm asking every member of this movement to go back home to your communities, to your workplaces. Talk to your families, your friends, and your neighbors. Tell them what they don't hear in the media about everything that we've accomplished. Tell them how the policies the president's advanced are making a difference in the lives of American families and enterprises and in the life of our nation. Tell them we've cut their taxes and put more money in their pockets. Tell them we're restoring American strength at home and abroad so their families can sleep safe at night. And tell them that thanks to our administration, confidence is back. Jobs are coming back. Just tell them America is back. And as we prepare for the challenges ahead, let's remember, progress is driven by the people who show up. Your president and I need you to show up. Defend all that we've accomplished and all that we have yet to do. We can't turn back, men and women. We can't give anything less than everything. America's counting on us. But I know in my heart that we'll come through. And you'll come through for this country once again. I've seen the courage and conviction that defines the men and women of the conservative movement all my life. And I see it in your faces this morning. I mean, my friends, the truth is we live in a time of widening challenges and unknowable threats. A time of too much division and too much anger in America. You know, it seems like we're becoming more and more disconnected from each other. Too often unable or unwilling to meet our fellow citizens where they are, to do what the president did yesterday, just to listen to one another in a spirit of humility and respect. And increasingly, it seems like we've lost sight. We've lost sight of who we are as a people, that the truth is, here in the United States of America, it's true today and it's always been true, that there will always be more that unites us than will ever divide the good and great people of this country. So let's try to reconnect in the days and the debates that come ahead. Reconnect with one another, reconnect with our communities. And lastly, I also believe that we should also seek in these challenging times to reconnect to something deeper. Something that speaks to the very heart of who we are. Someone who I believe has always been the source of our strength, and more than that, our hope. You know, yesterday mourned the passing of one of the greatest Americans of the past century, the Reverend Billy Graham. We remembered his ministry, a ministry for the gospel that changed the lives of millions. And we remember his matchless voice that inspired our nation during some of our darkest times. I remembered one such time just yesterday. His words at the National Cathedral 17 years ago. Words spoken just 3 days after the worst attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor. I was there as a first-term member of Congress, and I'll never forget what he said. On that day, Billy Graham said to the American people, "The spirit of this nation will not be defeated." But he admonished Americans to, in his words, come together to confess our need for God. He said, "We've always needed God from the beginning of this nation, but today we need him especially." And he reminded us that the Bible says, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. And so with that admonition in my heart, I close today with faith. Faith in the boundless capacity of the American people. Faith in the president and the leaders they've elected to represent them at every level. and with that other kind of faith. What Billy Graham called hope for the present and hope for the future. That in the days ahead, as we work to advance our cause, restore our country, let us also remember to claim that hope, remembering those ancient words that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, he'll hear from heaven and he'll heal this land, this one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So to this conservative movement, I say today, we've accomplished much in a little more than a year, but we've got a lot more to do. With the renewed commitment of this rising generation, with the support of strong conservative majorities in the Congress, with President Donald Trump in the White House, and with God's help, I know we will make America safe again. We will make America prosperous again. And to borrow a phrase, we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America.
Everybody, raise your glasses to the senator.
To Ted Kennedy.
In the White House in '72.
We're family. There's no more important word. We share a lifetime bond. We have a situation here on Chappaquiddick.
There's been an accident. We can't find Mary Jo.
What the hell happened last night? I was driving.
Do you have any idea? Court of public opinion will have your head on a stake.
We tell the truth, or at least our version of it.
I want you to know that every effort possible was made to save her.
What do we do to help the senator?
A dead body holds a lot of secrets. Those can be the difference between guilt and innocence.
Are you saying that there's a possibility that maybe she didn't drown?
I could have had her out of that car in 25 minutes if I got the call. But no one called.
Sometimes the path you're on isn't always the path you choose.
What's stopping you from making that choice yourself?
I can't watch you do this, Ted.
Do what, Joe?
Self-destruct.
Oh my God, what have I done?
We're not afraid of the IRS. Judicial Watch is fighting the IRS right now in federal court to hold it accountable to the rule of law over its illegal targeting of Americans for their political beliefs. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. We need to follow the rule of law on immigration. Judicial Watch is in court against politicians who want to break the rules to protect illegal aliens. We want to protect the rule of law, and we want to protect you. Follow us on YouTube now. We haven't forgotten Hillary Clinton. Judicial Watch exposed the Clinton email scandal, and we're in court right now holding her accountable to the same laws and rules the rest of us are expected to follow. Follow us on Facebook.
We are coming together at a crucial time in our nation's history. America is making great strides towards freedom and liberty, but she also confronts determined foes and faces enormous challenges. Challenges that strike directly at the core principles that all of us here hold so dear. Free enterprise, limited government, individual freedom, traditional values, and national security. Across America and the world, we see where liberalism has left its devastating mark. In homes, in schools, in communities, and in capitals. That's why our work is so important, and it's what the Heritage Foundation is all about. At Heritage, we're not just a bulwark against the left, we're a battleship for liberty. We are determined to guide America to renewed greatness and to take the fight to liberalism. That's why I'm so proud to serve as the Heritage Foundation's president, and why I'm so honored to join with you here at CPAC in the fight for the greatest nation on earth.